So, G, welcome. Thank you for joining us. One thing that I find really interesting about your journey is that you got into finance because you wanted to understand how it played a part in systems change. I just find that fascinating.
I would say I'm one of the many people that have uncompromisable value and need to see the world better. In a way, I've always seen this potential paradise, heaven that we have on this planet. And because of few people, this minority with this vested interest, the world is going to a darker place, which of course we need to revert this trend. And so since I was a teenager, I've always been looking at why the world is going this way and what can we do about it. Where is the problem, And then I started studying finance when I was pretty young, 13, my first book, starting reading finance, then becoming a trader at 17, from then onward for 11 years working in asset management, specifically with neural networks and behavioral economics to predict market changes based on behavior. But also when it comes to systems change, for me it was so important to understand the role of economics in societal behavior and how much the system shapes the people or how much the people shapes the system. And to my surprise, in a way, I realized that it wasn't about the economic system. It was about the human system, the societies that we create as human beings.
The ecosystem.
Yeah, the ecosystem. And then for the past 8 years, since I sold my company, I've been a philanthropist and then studying neuropsychologies and complex systems to basically see relational dynamics, power dynamics, cognitive capacity, and other behavioral aspects. So it really has been driving me the effective deployment of capital to accelerate systems change, going really on the root causes of the problem rather than dealing with the symptoms, which is, to me, is an impossible battle because symptoms will always manifest. And so if you are able to move it from feedback loops and circles that are degenerative in a way or destructive and moving it into feedback loop where actually you're creating resiliency and thriving and solving problems, that's so powerful. So that has been really driving me. And personally, of course, also wanting to see the potential of talents, of change makers being expressed. There are so many beautiful people, minds, hearts out there that could change things if only they were empowered and created this substrate, the infrastructure, the ecosystem needed to thrive. And I think we can make it happen. I mean, these other things are more technical, but they can be solved with enough resources and intentionality. So yeah, I'm very optimistic actually for all of this.
Yeah. So thank you. That's a great overview. And now I'd like to talk about convergence hubs. So what is a convergence hub?
And even here connected to complex systems, what are clusters where nodes get hyper-connected? Convergence hubs are spaces where people, experts, change makers, however we want to call it, come together with a clear mission and purpose and say, okay, we want to tackle this problem specifically. You imagine a specific hub on material innovation, where you have 3D printers, you have microscopes, you have places to test and deploy technologies, and then you invite the experts there. So creating spaces for convergence, for coherence, where you can really focus. And then you have the element of being close to people that are in the same wavelength as you are. We had people coming here saying, I've never been in a place in my life where every single conversation I have is inspiring, I'm learning, it's deep, is healing me inside, because finally it's not just in my head. So many things I felt, now they're resonating. So being in a place that, wow, now you are in potentially best performance environment, it really changes the way you are on a daily basis. So we think about this as the substrate. What can emerge from this substrate? Like when you have the talents, when you have the people, when you have the energy, the capital, and the right conditions, we know that incredible stuff will emerge from it. And then you activate local economies as well, the farmer, the restaurant, the hotel, and that brings back so much energy around these hubs, connecting with local communities and testing directly those solutions so that you can create immediate feedback loops and iterations. And then, of course, you have all the other elements of creating economic powerhouse, because then you might have hubs that are connected to, for example, food security, agricultural technologies. You might have hubs producing things, and then you have other hubs receiving and buying it, and vice versa. And that's where, again, proximity is essential, because this works if you start to create a network that is relatively close to each other. Clusters of these hubs in proximity, and then, of course, you start expanding.
Mm-hmm. And so there's economies that are created between the hubs, and we're having people and ideas and resources flowing between these different nodes. And that's where the real magic happens, right?
Yeah. And that's where operating with villages nearby is essential, because then you start repopulating those villages, and then people can start forming communities from hubs to communities.
And so a place like this can act like a kind of an acupuncture point for the whole region. And especially if you had a cluster of them, it's amplified exponentially, and things can really change on a local level, on a bioregional level, but also you have these big puzzle pieces that are parts of the solution that are starting to be developed here, and then as other hubs develop in other places.
Yeah, and in a way, also, when we talk about power dynamics, one of the ways to deal with power dynamics is create decentralization, or even better, polycentrism, so that you start to have multiple clusters in the networks where power, actions, knowledge is spread across it and is not accumulated just into one. And that's not only about power, but it's also about the efficiency of information flow and energy flow. Polycentrism allows to have better and more effective ways of distributing information, knowledge, and capital, rather than if it was stuck into one. The hub is the hardware, and the interconnection of all these hubs into this network is the software. And that's part of the work that we're doing here from these hubs, specifically creating the operative system for all these hubs to interconnect. So knowledge repositories, having AI running in every meeting where you know, okay, this project is doing this organization is looking for this other person is looking for this solution. And then when you have multiple hubs where all of this is happening in real time, you start interconnecting things. Like, okay, this solution came up in this conversation in this hub. Let's create a connection. And that's where you have matchmaking algorithms that we have been testing and deploying in the platforms that we have built. And the platforms actually have been up and running since last year. From matchmaking to information flow to capital allocation to leverage point identification, what's working, what's not working, in order to create resiliency, adaptation, rapid evolution, advancement, and so on. Because also we are moving in pioneering solutions that have not been tried before. So how do we know which one is effective, which one is working? Mistakes. And there are so many organizations, trying things and failing, but where are those mistakes captured? Are they available for others to say, oh wow, I don't need to spend $10 million and 10 years trying to figure out this, because they've already tried extensively, and maybe I can try something else.
So if you have the right infrastructure in terms of knowledge sharing, in terms of coordination, there really aren't failures, because those lessons become absorbed into larger consciousness.
Well, and connected to the aspect of really coordination, how can we use algorithms to bridge all these hubs in the most, I would say, automated and lightweight possible for the people running it. Because of course, running spaces already is complex. And if you have to capture, process, store information in a way that is readable for others, well, that's more work. So if we can automate all of these, well, it's very powerful. And then you also have a team like us that can come help for the first 6 months with the software, with the operating model, with the booking systems, with all the nitty-gritty things, which are a lot. There are hundreds of components to take in consideration to create a place where is really a fertile ground for cross-pollination and emergence to happen. Yeah, and we're doing all of these open source anyway, so all these best practices, we're putting all of these publicly, and of course we are happy to help and set up hubs, and you'll be pretty much up and running in 3 months. So that's our experience.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Tell me just a little bit about the community that's formed here.
And I would say pretty much everyone coming from corporate world or innovation and technologies world. So we have people from large corporations like Accenture, LG, Samsung, Apple, people working in robotics and automation, complex systems, or people working on the business aspect of companies or fund management as well. That in a way, they wanted to make of their time and talents something much more effective. And they wanted to be in a place of elevation, where their talent is not restricted to meaningless things just for profit, or sometimes even problem creation. You know, I get conversation with people working on UX, studying 10 years how to make things better for users, and then being paid to work on how to make the process of unsubscribing from a platform as troublesome as possible. You know, and there's no amount of money for these people that will compensate for their talents and time going down the drain, and the dreams, you know, being wrecked by vested interests. So I would say, yeah, all talents that really felt their potential being not expressed, and then being in an environment where now they can run further, but also being supported by people that are like-minded and that are complementary. So there is this cross-pollination that even in offices you don't have, because in offices it's 9 to 5, you have your desk, and then when you're done, you're done. Here the magic happens at dinner. It happens when, you know, maybe people are playing football outside, or, you know, around the swimming pool, or on a walk in the forest that we have nearby. And all the thoughts, all the inspiration happens in that. We are not, you know, robots, we know this. It's not that it can only happen in the Zoom call or the Google Meet or the email thread. Here you are catalyzing and accelerating emergence. Having a clear team, a clear focus, a selection of the people where you say, okay, this person is coherent with the mission and the purpose of this hub. And that's why it's also key to talk and connect with the other hubs and say, what's a piece of the ecosystem that is missing here?
A particular piece that's being worked on here, along with the technology, is attracting investment and showing investors and philanthropists why this is so important and how it can actually really make an impact in systems change. So tell me a little bit about that focus here.
Because we are in this space, of course, we work with a number of high net worth individuals, but they are also struggling when pollution is increasing, when crime is increasing, when the weather is becoming worse and worse, or when they cannot travel because there are systemic risks, wars happening, and so on. I mean, there is nobody winning in this scenario. So, investors and visionaries that can see, wow, there is something beyond just returns, and I can really create a better world for my kids, for my legacy. People that see the importance of infrastructure investment. Because if we want to solve problems and we want to build resiliency, we need to move from individual projects to ecosystems. And to have ecosystems, you need to invest in the infrastructure that bridge all these components. And this infrastructure could be hubs, could be platforms, could be venture builders, could be accelerators, where you have a flow of energy that is effective, so that even if a company fails, their assets, their knowledge, their teams get absorbed in companies on the other side that are succeeding, rather than failing in isolation or reinventing the wheel. So when you start moving into ecosystem thinking, then you say, oh, okay, then it's a matter of infrastructure and bridging and information flow and capital flow. So investors that can see these, to me, are the investors that will change the system. And then, of course, you have philanthropists that have the patience and the capital to say, I want to solve this problem, whether there is profit to be made or not. people that really can enable change without compromises. Yeah, and bridging the gap, really, because right now there is a big gap between the solutions, the people that can drive the solutions, and the wealth holders that could enable these solutions to happen. And this gap is wide. You have gap of knowledge of the available solutions, and then all these emergent solutions that are also struggling to attract capital, and they go into survivalism mindset and competition mindset. And right now we work with more than 70 networks of talents, change makers. So there is so much unexpressed potential or latent potential that wants to emerge. And the only thing that is stopping it is really the places, the infrastructure, and the resources. So having hubs where it's not like a conference that you have 1,000 people in 3 days, but actually you have 10 people on the capital allocation side that are looking specifically to deploy it on a very specific acupuncture, leverage point, or theme, and then invite the 5 most relevant solutions. It's so important.
So what suggestions would you have for philanthropists, impact investors like yourself to get involved in the creation of Convergence hubs?
I would say, well, of course, reach out to us. We are here to share our knowledge, to co-invest. We want to open more hubs. So for us, this is a model that then can scale, and we are very happy to co-invest together. As well as, of course, the fund that we are launching precisely for this reason, because we have been investing in dozens of projects, but we have been doing it individually, project by project. And for investors, having to learn and understand about each single project in the ecosystem, also this one is a bit complex. So the fund, it's a way to deploy capital in an effective way, and more ecosystem rather than having to choose project by project, and having in a way a broader impact, as well as having dashboards, technologies, navigation tools to see this acupuncture point and data in real time, because then you say, okay, we have invested 500K here, we see potential, we need to deploy more. And I would say also join circles, which are these online groups and offline groups of people coming then here to the hub and seeing it. There's so much difference in seeing it with your own eyes, and also the workshops, the courses that are happening around systems change. And these are all things, of course, that we have been seeding from the hub as well. Yeah, I would say places like these are running. And with more resources, we can scale it faster. Like we know, we see that it's working. Now it's a matter of expansion, which in a way to me is the easier part. The more complex part was finding the engine, in a way, the right feedback loop system that starts spinning and generating outcome, basically. And then, of course, from now on is all about scaling and refining. It can only get better.
Maybe so. Thanks, G.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thanks to you all.